Good evening, and welcome to Mechanics of the Fourth Wall. Joining myself and Antonio Subrax tonight is Robert Shortman for some confessions of an Antarctic plumber. How are you doing, Robert?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
And how are you doing, Antonio?
I am doing absolutely splendid, thank you.
Superb. Robert, we've all, well, I hope some of the people who are watching the show now have had a bit of an introduction to you from the Oxford Mixer. But for people who haven't have had the slightest idea who you are or what you've done, maybe you can start us off by telling us when you were down in Antarctica and how you got to be there.
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of a last minute slot, and in British Antarctic Survey, basically they normally send out newsletters and newspaper information and for positions to obviously be base plumber, electrician, and all the scientific posts as well. So luckily the plumber that was there dropped out, and they only had like literally a month or so before the ship was sailing down there, and I had to obviously fly to the Falklands and then sail to Antarctica. So yeah, that was a interesting situation because basically I managed to complete the application, do all the interviews and written assessments, and passed all that, and they were happy. And I went on the training courses, and from Brize Norton, RAF Brize Norton, they always take the TriStars down to the Falklands, and that's at the RAF base in Mount Pleasant, and that's where all the military personnel and BAS personnel fly in from. I mean, there is a ship that goes down, but that normally goes down months in advance because obviously it takes its time to sail all the way down.
So Robert, how did you actually hear that they needed like a plumber type?
Oh, that was I just basically went into a local pub and decided to have a drink with a friend, and we were talking, and the girl that was serving behind the bar mentioned that she actually worked for the Antarctic Survey, and she said, "Yeah, we're looking for plumbers at the moment. I'll bring an application form and a photo album from when I was down there, and yeah, can fill it out and yeah, see how it goes, kind of thing." So I filled it out, got a reply, and went through the interview process, and that's pretty much how it all kind of led from there. Was on the payroll then once everything was applied, and I went through all the testing, and then that meant all the courses which I completed, and that was the industrial gas, industrial LPG, and climbing and other courses involved with close confinement. So close confinement means you have to go on like a special training course where you put the breathing apparatus on, like you see the firemen. So it's the breathing apparatus, the oxygen cylinders at the back, and then obviously all the fireproof clothing, fireproof gloves, boots. So obviously if people are stranded inside this building and you have to go in and rescue them, you can actually go in as a firefighting crew rather than just as a civilian without any kind of equipment. You couldn't rescue a fire. And like I say, because Antarctica is so dry, it's 10 centimeters of moisture falls each year, and obviously that's like ice crystals, and it can build up and clump in areas. So
So you said Bryce Norton for people in the US. Bryce Norton, just tell them what it is, what Bryce Norton basically is.
it's an RAF facility, and it also has an airport in it, which can if you want to go to the Falklands, I think it's quite an expensive flight. It's not cheap,
So that's
and
the Royal Air Force.
it is, yes. Royal Air Force flights. Civilians can book flights on that, and it's just basically you go through a checkpoint, a simple checkpoint at the gate, and then obviously into the airport side of that. The rest of the base is pretty much sealed off anyway. So at the airport side, you would get dropped off, and then you just go through the standard procedures of filing in with your passport, all that type of thing, like a normal airport. It's no different.
Yeah.
Um,
But when you were there, did you do training, kind of like physical training? Anything?
Physical training, not so much. That's kind of they rely on your fitness. You'd go through a full medical, so the doctor checks you out physically to make sure that everything's in working order. You do like a full medical.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how they ensure you're physically and mentally fit to to go
Alright.
down there and put up with the extreme cold and also the extreme isolation.
Cool, but okay, forget all of that. You
I was
go
going to say,
to
let's get straight on to the
Antarctica.
decent questions. I mean,
Yeah.
the question that came up first and foremost on a lot of the comments was, is there 24-hour daylight in Antarctica?
24-hour daylight. I mean, the way I explain it is the daylight is similar to like in Norway and Alaska, and obviously that, you know, is 18, 20 hours, and then you get a merge in between. So when I was there, because I wasn't aware of all the flat Earth truths and facts that I know now, the position of being aware of where the sun wasn't so much important, but I did pay attention to the arcs it was doing, and that was definitely, you know, horizontal arcs rather than all the way around. So I don't remember none of those. I remember more of the from one side to the other in the horizon kind of thing.
Wait, you mean you're in Antarctica and the sun wasn't going
Oh
round
no, yeah,
you?
yeah, that's right, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
hello, Mr. Globalist. You don't know this. So it was coming up.
You don't pay attention to the sky and that kind of thing when you're there, because you're in such an extreme environment. You're kind of really trying to get to grips with how extreme it is. So the sun and all that, you know, the normal things you might look at. Now, if I went there, I would, you know, it would be time lapse, 360 camera, you know, and then I could say, oh, look, it's going over the horizon, you know. But yeah, all the webcams and all the images that I've seen in the past after coming back from Antarctica, you know, the questions went up immediately when you're finding missing time frames and big chunks out of all this footage. And I was aware of that before I was even aware of flat Earth, and it brought up suspicions then as I was aware of the normal conspiracies.
So, Robert, just so we've got absolute clarity, is there 24-hour daylight in Antarctica, yes or no?
I'd say no, not all the time, no.
So is there 24-hour nighttime?
Well, again, if nighttime's defined as total darkness, like, you know, because this area has, you know, no light pollution at all, there was nothing. Yeah, I didn't need a torch ever, and I never ever remember using a torch to get from one building to the other.
So, sorry to interrupt. It's nighttime, it's winter, it's Antarctica.
Antarctic winter, yeah. In the
winter.
You know, it is dark, but it is not pitch black, and it's not total darkness. So yeah, you could see your hand in front of your face. I class darkness is in a room with no windows, and then the light goes out, and you cannot see in front of your face. You know, the hand, you have to get a torch out to see. And I've been in woods, and I've been walking in fields, and I've been in places where it's, you know, it's like that in the UK.
I have too. My folks used to live in Shropshire, and in the UK it's the area of the least light pollution. And as you described, in nighttime you put your hand a foot away from your face and you cannot see it, and that's in Britain, not Antarctica.
That's what I've experienced many times, and that's why a torch is essential if you're walking in the UK kind of thing. So to not have a torch and to be able to see between the buildings, because you know, the ice is not smooth and flat. Over the wind is, you know, ripping all the time kind of thing. So you end up with constant wind, and that moving all the ice crystals and stuff causes like undulations and like big massive lumps. So you get, you know, so the land is not smooth even when you're going over it. It's not land, it's water. But the water, you know, the frozen ice is not smooth, and you know, if I could see my feet, then obviously I can walk, and it's not that dark. So yeah, it's like a dark twilight when I was there. That's what I experienced, you know.
And that's in the winter in the Antarctic.
Yeah, it's in the winter. Yep.
So not pitch black.
No, not pitch black.
Winter. So not 26 degrees off from vertical, you know, pointing away from the sun. So none of that nonsense. Anyway, we all know this. I just want to know, sorry Nathan, just one thing. How many times did you end up doing like a cartoon shape imprint of you in the snow as you fell? Did that happen? Because I'm sure
it takes a while just to get used to walking on it. It's like walking on sand. That's the best way to describe it. If you've ever walked on a beach that's got deep sand and you're wearing Wellingtons, then that would be the best way to describe it. Sand dune, soft sand, not wet sand, that will give you the equivalent of how hard it can be. It's
One of the things
just
before we go off this subject, because I know there's a dozen more than a dozen different subjects that we want to go through with you, but yesterday, or the day before yesterday, sorry, you went through sort of comparative differences between what we should experience based on being on a globe in the north versus what you experienced in the south. I mean, without me leading you too much, can you talk us through those differences, or the apparent differences we should experience but don't?
Yeah, I think that with the way the plane that we imagine is, the center obviously is the North Pole. Everywhere else from that reads south to north and north to south, so you get a bearing from that wherever you go round. And in the center there's more land mass, and I think by that in general it is warmer in the north than the supposed south. And that's, well, if you look at the edge of it, the sun takes longer to get to there from the middle anyway, so without the islands and without anything being else there, that's why it's so cold compared to the north, where you get, I think it's -40, -50 in the north, and you could get 60, 70, or they've had even 80s plus in the Russian base. So
will you?
very cold. So, yeah, very cold.
One of the things I thought was really interesting was when you were describing the globe pie chart versus the real situation.
Yeah, the pie chart. Each country has a section of the natural resource of Antarctica. No one owns it, that's what they say, but obviously each country has the section. Some are larger, some overlap. Argentina overlaps the UK section, which is quite ironic with it being so close to the Falklands. But they're generally nice guys, and everyone that was there got on because you're in the same situation. So when you saw visitors that were flying in on their twin-engine planes, then yeah, they're all really nice and good people. Yeah, everyone that I worked with was nice there, so it wasn't a hard situation because they've all been vetted before that. That everyone's stable.
Yeah. So what were you actually doing in Antarctica? What was your role?
My role was the base plumbing and heating engineer, and I was there to maintain all the facilities, the plumbing, the heating, the waste, water, and keep everything running and warm.
So tell us what part of your duties. Earlier you were telling me about a situation that happened with when you were telling me about a doctor who wrote a book about it. Yeah, go.
Yeah, the doctor that wrote a book, he basically put everyone in the book as a story, and I'll read a section from it now. This is to do with me. So Rob the plumber, the man who's vital to our dependence on the heating, has parachuted in on the final Shackleton call. Plumbers were earning such good money in Britain that no one has applied for the first round of interviews. On the question of why he had applied, strangely silent, it was rumoured falsely, it turned out that he was on the run from the law. So that's just a clip from the book.
And what book is that?
It is Empire Antarctica.
Will you show it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what page did you just read?
Sorry, can you just hold it up a bit, Robert? I'll hold the camera on you for a second just so you can actually see the book. There we go. Thank you very much.
You can get it on Amazon.
What page did you just read from? Because there'll be people out there who are saying none of this is true. Just so they can have a look and.
Yeah. That was page 91, and it transfers over to page 92. So it's like on the bottom of 91, and then on the top of 92. Do
you want to show the little dedication? I don't know if you want to. Well, you showed me the dedication. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, the dedication. How's that?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Down a little bit.
There we go.
Lovely.
So yeah, it's good. Everyone was good.
Say something about your fillings.
Feelings when I was there, my teeth were slightly worse for wear, best way to put it, and that was due to the tuck shop that was open 24 hours of chocolate and sweets and stuff.
What? Just free?
Yeah, free, and it's
Oh.
because you use so many calories down there. It's so cold.
Well,
If
actually,
you,
Robert, I was going to come on to this later. I'll come back to the other points because while
yeah,
we're on this subject, you were saying about last time we spoke about how potentially the media spin that's placed on Antarctica is such that it seems perhaps more extreme than it is by virtue of them. Now, I don't know this for certain, but potentially filming people while they're in the acclimatization stage. So if you can maybe talk us through your thoughts on that and explain what you had to do in order to stay down there for 12 months plus.
yeah, definitely. My experience was when I got there, the temperature was just going from summer into autumn, so the temperatures suddenly started to drop. So summer temperatures can be anywhere from like average of -4 or -5 to 10 to 15, and if the wind kicks up, maybe 18. But yeah, low temperatures in that respect, and then obviously it increases as the sun kind of moves further away or further in the distance. That's what it looked like. And the temperatures kind of can go where I was, which was Halley 5, round about -30 to 40 in the darker periods of time. Further in the supposed towards the edge or the South Pole, the edge I would say, more likely. Near the edge where the Americans are based, and it's so secretive, they're very snooty.
Oh, wait. So the Americans are based nearer the edge?
I would say nearer the edge or nearer the supposed South Pole, which is not what it is. Yes, so nearer the edge, which would be in keeping with all their other, NASA's and stuff like that. So therefore they control that. And if you think about it, the pie chart, and each country would have their own section of a pie chart. Well, a pie chart always comes to a point, and if that point supposedly goes to the South Pole, then each country should be able to have access and have a base or have some kind of station there, and it's not the case. The Americans own it completely, and obviously the answers that I've heard when I've asked questions of what it's like when they arrived there, they said they were very kind of, unwelcoming. They don't open the doors, you're not allowed on the base, and that type of situation. So that in itself is a bit suspicious, but not as much as when I was there. And all the 14 winterers that have gone through the whole winter, done all their duties, kept all the base running. The scientists have all done all their science work, and projects have been completed. So you do projects through these periods to keep to build new things in the base, and I think that helps with keeping you busy as well, because obviously the strain of being with 14 people in close proximity for a long period of time you can get a thing called cabin fever or that type of third stage effect, and that's as you kind of getting used to this dark period or the darker period, you don't get sunlight. The way the doctor, I think, managed to avoid that was he used Philips lamps that produce like sunlight effects. It was very, very bright lights, and they're sunlight bulbs basically. I think
Are
they're
these
about
like
300 or 400.
Sorry, are these like the seasonal affective disorder lamps?
Yes, they're the
Yeah.
ones. Yeah, they used them. They were doing tests while we were there to see how we were sleeping and how we responded to the lights. And actually, what the lights did do is they stopped that seasonal affective disorder creeping in at the last final stage. So as you're 3/4 of the way through your 12, 13-month stay there, it's the latter stage that you start getting these effects because of obviously the difficulties with no light. If you're just relying on uh, standard lamps, fluorescent lamps or that type of thing, even spotlights, they don't produce the bright light that you need from sun equivalents.
Yeah. So can you just reiterate for the people out there your acclimatization period?
Took
How long was
two to
that?
3 months before my body could cope with the cold, and I didn't get affected or feel the kind of the severity of the cold, the dehydration, the humidity there is about 5 to 10%. So in the base with the ventilation system, they actually have a steam humidifier which puts humidity into the actual base, because you cannot sleep well with such low humidity.
Yeah.
And when I did an expedition, which is like the time when you have time off to go on holiday, they organise trips away, and trips away are normally going over crevasses and exploring the actual sea cliffs and the sea cliffs, ice cliffs and ice caverns. And
Yeah.
you get to explore it, camp at the same time.
So, question: do you have any pictures you can show us?
I'll screen share and I'll put them up now.
Excellent. We've been getting these for several days now from Robert, and every single time we get them, it is quite astonishing. So once Robert's got a few booted up and large, I'll present his screen to you all.
Okay,
So
this
can you
is.
talk us through what we're actually looking at, please, Robert? I'll check that it's coming through on the live.
We're looking at the back of the Shackleton, which is the British ship. They've got a new one at the moment, but this is the old ship that just leaves a wake, and basically it's breaking through the thin ice and it leaves a path, and that allows them to either retreat or keep going through that. Just go to this is an interesting picture.
Wow!
The bases, there were 3 bases that were active in the winter time, 4 in the summertime, because there were more people there. The 3 main bases were interconnected with tunnels that, when it was first built, these tunnels weren't tunnels, they were actually on the surface level, connecting these buildings via shafts. And these shafts, because the buildings were on stilts, would run up to them. And as the years progressed, you get the accumulation build-up, which went anywhere from 1 meter to 2 meters per year. That eventually covered these, and it got to the point when I was there, they were 120 foot below the level of ice. So to get down the actual passageway, you had to climb down a 120-foot ladder. I've got some pictures I can show you, so
Yeah.
you'll see the vertical shaft when I get to it.
So, whoa.
Whoa!
That's what that is to do with the lamps you can see there. I think they were sodium lamps, and if you got it at the right angle with the camera and the flash, it kind of gave this really magical orange glow. And all that was the moisture in some of the tunnels that weren't active, where there's nobody going down it, and it's just a condensation collection formed these kind of square ice crystals that just hang from the ceiling. But you can see all the pipe work, and those are all the electrical communication cables on there. More heating pipe work at the bottom, and that was what carried heat through from the main building to these other units.
Let me just ask you something. So, if you were actually in the tunnel yourself and you had your head up towards these crystals, is this how they would look? This orange colour?
No, they look. I'll show you.
More like the previous picture.
Let me bring it out. Yeah, I will. These are what they look like. That gives you a clearer representation. So you still see the sodium lamp, but the glow's not there. So that gives you they're white.
And just so I've got it clear, and for the people out there, so these cables were laid. As time goes by, more moisture causes more ice crystals on the surface. The surface gets higher and higher, and the bases that these feed have to be lifted up, otherwise those bases would themselves end up buried. Is that right?
That is correct, yes. These tunnels were extremely strong because they had to cope with the pressure of all the ice above, and imagine 120 foot of ice above and how much that was. The actual tunnels will crush over time completely, so you did see distortions in the tunnel, and it wasn't straight because obviously the ice is pressing against it. And They
I
can
can see
take
the
so much,
bottom.
but they can flex. You can actually see it is running uphill, and then it goes over that and then starts dropping down again. So there was like a hump in between
Right.
the straight passage.
So like from a technical point, so these tunnels, at the end of these tunnels, there's a some kind of base. This
They
base has to
they
be
were the
lifted up. So
sorry.
when they're lifting the base up, do they splice extra cable?
Yes, they will splice extra cable via connection points. They will add extra pipe work, and then they will lag it. Then they will add the framework of the steel structure, which is built up from the surface level of the existing one. So if you imagine it like Lego bricks that are hollow, they just clamp it on, bolt it all into place, keep doing it that way, and that's how they can increase the height of the buildings, because then they would raise them up on powered jacks and increase the leg height.
Right.
And
Cool.
put a plate while it's jacked up, metal plate that they rivet and bolt into place. All the workers that were working on Halley 5 were summertime. There was a complement of about 120 steel workers, because obviously it's such an extreme large structure to get it jacked up and all these things put into place. You couldn't just do it if you were, a scientist. A lot of the plumbing, mechanical, vehicle engineers took part in helping out as well.
Right. Cool. So do you have any photos of the exterior? Let's have a look.
Yeah, I do. Okay, this is one of the inside before we go. This is what it's like looking up the actual shaft. So you can see the ladder there. You can see how the pipes are insulated. Electrical cable there. Same with all that. They're big, thick power cables. So all the buildings are powered up and
So
connected.
this is where the splicing would go on, is it? Like
That's
towards
correct,
the top of this?
yeah, so at the top, obviously, that's 120 foot up to the top of the shaft.
Right.
It's quite a task climbing up it, and you've got a harness so you can actually clamp on as you're climbing up, similar to what you see.
Oh, you're such a pussy.
Mind you, after a while of climbing up and down it, you don't need it. It's similar to those climbers that climb up the radar masks.
Yeah.
You see them going up, and then they think, right, I put the clamp on and have a lean back, and it's like that. You get used to it. It's all ice on all the rungs all the way up. So
Can you move it slightly more into the centre of frame or make it big? There we go.
as you can see, all the ice is built up even on those. So it's quite hairy going up and down it.
By the way, I said, just for the people out there, that he's such a pussy, because I've seen some of the photos of him abseiling, and oof, you want to see them.
That's me abseiling into a crevasse. You can just see that's the color. That's the color it actually was. It was the deepest, purest blue you've ever seen, because the ice water is so pure and it's compressed over time. It changes color, and you get these most magnificent shades of blue you'd never see anywhere, because it's done over time and the water's so pure there. And 90% of the world's water is locked up in this ice ring.
Wow. Have you got any more? Show us more.
That's looking down it from the top.
Wow.
So what we'd do is put an ice stake, or that's the way it's normally done. Ice stake, abseil rope down. You have a set of things called dumars, which would use to clamp onto the rope when you're at the bottom. So once you want to return, then you will clamp and step up and keep going.
So
And it allows you to go down and explore it.
Yeah. So you showed me some pictures of how you traveled. You know, you were showing the links. You know, there's 3 or 4 of you linked together.
Before you move on, can you just bring up that sundog picture again? It was just so cool. Maybe make it a bit bigger.
Yeah.
I'll try and
And
see.
if you can centralise it and zoom in at the bottom, there you go.
Okay, that's not the clearest picture, but it gives you an idea of how the base was on steel legs. That is the shaft that connects all the cables and pipes that you see from the bottom. That was flexible. It was a wooden shaft, and it's designed because obviously, because when the building starts to sway and move, because the wind is so strong there, it allowed the shaft to move without straining the cables and the pipes. There were brakes, special design brakes in the pipework to allow for the movement as well.
Yeah. Cool.
Do you have any pictures of an onion?
An onion? No, I don't have any pictures of an onion, but I can tell you the story of
Maybe
it.
if you could stop screen sharing, and maybe we can ask you a few questions about that particular part of your job.
Yeah.
So Dan Pratt had his first video put up today, and he was talking about them dropping garbage in Antarctica, and you were very much a forefront of dropping some of that garbage, were you not, Robert?
Yeah, I was partly responsible, but I was put into the situation when I had a tour around the base. But they showed all the maintenance areas that I'd need to be working on, and part of that was where the wastewater went. And I thought when I went there that it would be, disposed of in tanks or some type of special containers, or it'd be incinerated or filtered. No, a lot of the wastewater was macerated, including the soil waste, into like an effluent, and that was pumped into the ice.
So how did this happen?
So
walk us through the pumping, the making of these.
So each toilet system, there was 3 in the men's and 2 in the ladies, and that would go into a macerating pump that chops it all up, and then that's pumped into a tank in the building. And from that main tank, which is a storage tank, then that would pump it to the underground where they were storing the waste. And they weren't storing it, it was a hole in the ice that was cored out via injecting hot water into it. So you'd inject hot water into this thing, hollow it out like an onion, and that's why I call it the onion, because it forms a shape that starts at the top with a very thin neck, and then it bulges out to look like almost like a septic tank.
Yeah.
It's a very large one.
And it's just in the ice there,
Just in the ice. It's the same as when these explorers go there. They pee in the ice, and they probably clear their debris away and solids away in a bag. That's how they do it, but they still pee in the ice. And like I said, that's where all this macerated stuff went. So, in years to come, you're going to have the biggest shitsicle floating across the sea, and it's going to, affect whatever wildlife. It's not the most healthiest thing to have.
Imagine an iceberg.
Sorry, Antonio.
Something the size of Empire State Building.
Yeah, an iceberg full of
15 years worth or something like that. Whenever it started to whenever it finished, yeah.
There's going to be people out there that we're laughing about this, but they may not understand the implications of this. Maybe you can explain exactly what the rules and regulations in terms of Antarctica are and what you're supposed to be doing down there, or were supposed to be. I know they do some of this incineration stuff now, you were telling us, but if you can tell us what the rules and regs were supposed to be as opposed to what you've just told us.
Well, they removed a lot of all the solid waste, and that was all canned up. So yeah, all the physical waste was physically removed, transported back to the ship, as it should have been done. Any contamination or spillage was shoveled up on the surface. So just say you had an accidental fuel spillage or oil leakage from mechanical equipment, the skidoos, snowcats, that would have to be cleared up. So they had like a kind of cleanup kit for oil and that type of thing, and you just end up scraping it into a bag and then putting it into a steel drum, and then that would be shipped off. So they did.
Can you just say those words again? So a cleanup kit for oil that you have stored down there. That's correct, right?
Yeah, they did.
So I thought there was no storing of fuel.
Fuel? Oh yeah, they have oil and diesel and aviation after gas, and they use that to power the engines that they have running there for the generators. So they're diesel, aviation fuel generators that run on after, and they basically would power the 3 bases in total. There was backup generator in another one of the buildings, but the 3 generators produced something like 30,000 kilowatts. Sorry, a lot of power. It's enough to power all the electrical equipment in.
You just reminded me. Sorry to cut you off. Electrical, HARP.
Oh, look and dig that photo out. I'll do that now.
So one of the things that Robert told us was that whilst down there, he came across an array of antennas that were just there to basically.
This is an interesting story. The British Antarctic Survey were the first ones to discover the ozone hole, which we all pay for global warming now. They discovered it with this array that obviously detected it or caused it. It's very interesting. I'll have to see if I can find them. 2 seconds. Right.
And whilst you're looking, if you can, how long were you actually there for? Or it's
12 months at Halley, and there's, like I say, the summer period when you arrive and the summer period when you leave. That blends in between the both.
So you went in. You went just before the summer, and you left just after the summer.
That's correct. Yeah.
Having gone right through the year, from one summer to the next summer.
That's it. Sometimes you can stay on if you want to. I didn't really want to. I wanted to get back to a little bit of normality.
And when you were back home, did you go into pubs and stuff like that and say, "Shut up, I've been to Antarctica"?
No, when you come back, you're quite quiet because you're used to 14 people, and then suddenly you see thousands of people. It becomes quite daunting. You kind of takes you a while to get used to going into town and that type of thing. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a shock.
And whilst you were there, what were you? So you had you had a base, you had a quarters somewhere in one of the stations, but you also stayed in tents. You said.
I did a lot of camping when I was there.
So you get time off to go and do things.
That's correct.
Yeah. Huh.
So one of the things that really fascinated me, I tried to get you to come on to this earlier, was about the acclimatization to the area. So when we see people we're on TV in Antarctica, it's always portrayed as it's just going to kill you. Be there a few months and you die. And that's spin from what you told me. I will lead you in terms of what I want to say.
It is spin. Everyone there hardens up to that degree after 2 or 3 months. We can all cope with it. We all went on expeditions. There was no problem with anyone coping with the cold. As long as you wear the correct clothing, have food, fuel for heating and cooking, then you can survive quite happily there. Like I said,
this is after a period of acclimatization, though, isn't it?
It is. Anything before that, you suffer. I suffered periods when I either didn't drink enough, it's very dry, and the temperature affects your body, and you don't realize you're getting dehydrated. It's drier than a desert there. So as soon as you stop drinking, you double the water almost and the calories because you're burning them with the cold and using it with the fact it's so dry.
I remember what you told us about once you'd acclimatized, and there was a day when the temperature dropped to only -4, and what you were wearing.
-4 in the summertime after being hardened through the winter and being able to cope with all the extreme blows, wind, whiteouts where you can't see your hand in front of your face. That's the only time I couldn't see, was when the ice was blowing up. The rest of the time I could.
Yeah, but you said that at one point when it was -4, you were in your t-shirt.
T-shirt and trousers that were padded and insulated, and standard boots. Yeah.
So that's properly acclimatized.
That's properly acclimatized. I didn't feel the cold. I was working outside like that quite happily.
Yeah. So anybody planning any expeditions to Antarctica to go beyond the rim, bear that in mind. You'll have to do some training up in Alaska or something. And then get quickly to the south, so that you don't unclimatize. So you have to bear that in mind. For anybody who's planning any expeditions, like Matt Powerland or anybody like that, there's the acclimatization period, which was how long?
2 or 3 months easily.
Yeah. So that's something to bear in mind.
So Robert, as you've got the Gleason's or the As It Is map right behind Antonio, what's your reaction to that map based on what you've seen and what you know?
The reaction, I think I was about there, and the South Pole base was on the edge there somewhere.
Sorry, Anthony, I'll put you on now so you can point
That's
out.
okay.
So
So where? You were about here somewhere?
about there, yeah, Halley Bay, which is just kind of round about where your finger is now, right near the edge though.
Yeah, right near the edge.
No, the edge,
Right near the edge of the water?
right near the
Yeah.
water. Yeah, we were literally about 15 kilometers from where the sea ice is. That expands in the darker period.
And whilst you were looking at your horizon, looking north towards the sun
Yes.
sun would appear to go this way.
Yeah, that's it. I did a bit of flying when I was out there as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Tell us.
I was a co-pilot, and basically my job was to lift the heavy fuel barrels onto the plane, offload them, help the pilot out. I managed to get to do a bit of flying, and it felt like I was curving around like your finger just did there. It didn't feel like I was going straight a lot of the time.
Have you got the photograph of the controls? Because you tell us about GPS.
They didn't use GPS a lot there. That was the interesting thing I found. They did a lot of the direct navigation. And again,
there's
I'm not a
GPS
pilot, so
towers, is there?
there's no GPS. It was really bad. And if they have to use really expensive things to get some kind of accuracy, they have to spend such a lot of money. In this particular box to measure this ice crack that was appearing, it was 250, 300,000 pound, and the box the size of a shoebox, and it was this accurate device that was designed. It was military grade, obviously sent from the military in America direct, and that was.
Do you have the photograph?
I don't know.
Do you have the photograph?
I've got the photograph of the cockpit controls.
Yeah.
I can screen share that now.
Because of course, GPS works from triangulation, but if you're having to put things in a line, then you can't discern where you are from the triangulation. The triangulation works like Venn diagrams. So you've got a circle, another circle where it intersects, gives you one set of coordinates. You need a third to intersect again, and then you've got the approximate location. But if you have these in a line, you can't really discern where you are because there's no so-called Venn diagram portion. You know,
This is the one picture I had of the cockpit, and this was from one of the previous winterers that were there. They left a lot of stuff that was just loose on the hard drive.
You need to screen share.
Yep, I'll do that now.
Also, I stole one of your penguin pictures for a thumbnail for the advert for this. I don't know if you noticed.
Absolutely.
Two king penguins sort of looking like they're kissing each other. It was absolutely adorable. Yeah.
Okay.
Once you bring that up, I'll present you, Robert. Oh, there we go.
So that's a picture. It wasn't mine. It was done the year before when I was there.
So is it the central, the thing with the green lighting?
I don't know. Not sure.
All right.
Yeah, if you wanna close that down now, Robert, that's brilliant. Thank you for showing that. Stop sharing. There you go. Perfect. I've kind of lost my place now. I'm a bit overwhelmed with all the information we're taking in at the moment, Robert. You just need to click stop sharing, if you would.
Okay.
So just so I've got the sequence. You go from the UK, you do some training in the UK, you then go to South America, you then go to Antarctica. You then in Antarctica, you're keeping them warm. Kind of one of the, I'd say, the most fundamental job for somebody in Antarctica. So you're keeping people warm. You're helping with everything to do with keeping them warm and keeping the place clean. You know, so
That's
people.
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you get time off. You have however many days off.
You have a normal weekend.
Right. And in the weekend you hang around, you just chill, what do you do at the weekend?
The activities, you could go kind of cross-country skiing. You could go out on the skidoo within a certain range. There was also the ability you had to go down to the sea ice, and you went in the cooler periods, because obviously the worst thing you'd want to do would be go down to the sea ice in the summertime, because that's how the boat docks.
Yeah.
It just pulls up to it.